When people hear the word collapse, they picture one huge moment, one giant crash, one night when everything breaks at once. Real life is usually meaner than that. It starts with little failures stacking up. Power goes out, pumps stop, shelves thin, fuel lines grow, and suddenly the question is not, what state is best? The real question is, where could people hold out a little longer because they have water, food, space, and fewer pressure points? That is why I am not calling any state safe. None are safe. FEMA's National Risk Index exists because every community faces natural hazards, and it measures risk across 18 different hazard types, which is why county matters more than a pretty map. But if you forced me to pick 5 American states that look better positioned on paper, I would look for 4 things first: reliable fresh water, useful farmland, lower population pressure, and enough cold or distance to slow the speed of chaos. Number 5 is Maine. Maine is not easy country. Winters are hard, storms matter, and the coast can take punishment. But inland Maine has 2 things that matter in a prolonged emergency: space and natural cover. The 2020 census put Maine at just 44.2 people per square mile, which is low enough that crowd pressure can be very different from what you see in dense states. On top of that, USGS says Maine is the most forested state in the nation, with 89% of its territory classified as forest, and USDA still shows meaningful agriculture there, including more than 17 million hundredweight of potatoes in the 2025 state overview. That does not make Maine magical. It means Maine gives you trees, water access in many areas, and lower density, which can buy time if systems start failing slowly instead of all at once. If you are a viewer thinking like a parent, that matters. Time is everything. Time to filter water, time to secure heat, time to avoid crowds, time to make one good decision instead of 5 bad ones. Number 4 is North Dakota. This is the state many people forget because it does not feel dramatic, and that is exactly why it belongs on the list. North Dakota's 2020 population density was just 11.3 people per square mile. That is not a small detail. In a serious disruption, less crowding often means less immediate strain on stores, roads, and local systems. But space alone is not enough. You also need productive land, and North Dakota has that in a big way. USDA's 2025 overview shows more than 276 million bushels of spring wheat, more than 53 million bushels of durum wheat, plus canola, potatoes, hay, peas, lentils, barley, oats, and sunflower production. In plain language, this is a state with room and serious food-producing ground. The weakness is obvious too. Brutal winters, long distances, and a mistake can hurt faster when help is far away. So, North Dakota is not easy survival. It is more like a hard place that can stay functional longer if you are disciplined, equipped, and not dependent on dense city systems. Number 3 is Michigan. Michigan earns its place because water is not a side issue in collapse. Water is the issue. Michigan's own Office of the Great Lakes describes the Great Lakes as the world's largest freshwater resource, and EPA says the Great Lakes hold 84% of North America's surface fresh water and about 21% of the world's surface fresh water. That is a giant strategic advantage, not because you can drink lake water straight from the shore, but because freshwater geography matters when treatment systems, trucking, and long-distance supply chains start breaking down. Michigan also has real agricultural depth. USDA's 2025 overview shows 43,800 farm operations, 9.4 million acres operated, more than 12.5 billion pounds of milk production, over 352 million bushels of corn, and more than 100 million bushels of soybeans. The downside is that Michigan is more populated than Maine or North Dakota, and not every part of the state gives you the same advantages. But if you are looking at pure positioning, water plus agriculture is a powerful combination. Number 2 is Wisconsin. Wisconsin sits in the same freshwater story because the Great Lakes Basin is one of the most important water regions on the continent. And EPA notes that the basin also supports 7% of American farm production. Wisconsin also brings serious dairy and livestock strength. USDA's 2025 state overview shows about 1.285 million milk cows and 3.25 million cattle, including calves. That matters because collapse survival is not just about hiding in the woods with a backpack. It is about whether a region has working land, animal agriculture, calories, and practical water access when normal systems get shaky. Wisconsin is not lightly populated like North Dakota, but it still has a strong blend of farmland, freshwater position, and practical food production. The weakness, again, is that the state is not one thing. Some counties are far better positioned than others, but if I had to explain it to a 10-year-old, I would say it like this. Wisconsin has milk, land, and water, and those 3 things matter a lot more than hype when life gets hard. Number 1 for me is Minnesota. Not because it is perfect and not because winter is friendly. Winter there can be punishing. But Minnesota stacks several survival advantages together in a way that is hard to ignore. It is less crowded than Michigan or Wisconsin at 71.7 people per square mile in the 2020 census. It sits on the Great Lakes system through Lake Superior, which connects it to one of the biggest freshwater systems on Earth. And its farm output is enormous. USDA's 2025 overview shows nearly 1.7 billion bushels of corn, more than 371 million bushels of soybeans, plus spring wheat, potatoes, and hay. In other words, Minnesota combines space, serious crop production, and major freshwater geography. That does not mean every town in Minnesota is ready. It means the state has more natural building blocks for endurance than many others. And that is the whole point of this list. We are not looking for fantasy safe zones. We are looking for places that may hold together a little longer, because the land itself gives people more to work with. If you are watching this and feeling that tight fear in your chest, that is normal. But fear is only useful if it turns into clear thinking. So remember the real lesson. Do not chase a perfect state. Chase the right county, the right water source, the right weather reality, the right food base, and the right community. States can buy you a little time. What you do with that time is what decides everything.